Come, you wasp. I'faith, you are too angry.
If I be waspish, best beware my sting.
Everyone hates wasps, people insist with self-righteous fury, as if anyone thinking otherwise was beyond all reason. What on earth was God doing making wasps? A child exclaims, at a picnic or in a kitchen or anywhere. We hate them. The child passionately implies that the whole of creation's at fault because of this one unwelcoming bug in the system. Oh, go away. Why are they so annoying? What use are they? And they sting. Wasps, you're horrible. You're completely pointless. Just go. Right, I've told you. Now you've had it. And someone tries to kill one. Then, as if in a self-fulfilling prophecy, someone gets stung. For a threatened wasp's signals can be picked up by its fellows, urging them to come to its defense, whereupon they sting. Wasps then leave to pollinate a wild orchid, their speciality, or to farm aphids for honeydew, or to make their waterproof paper nests. This latter skill giving the Chinese the idea of turning chewed pulp into paper, according to Needham's Science and Civilization in China. And this biomimetic act would change the course of history, because without the wasp, paper might have been a rarity, and communication confined to papyrus or to cuneiform marks on mud and wax tablets or on graveyard inscriptions. I still hate them, the voice persists. It doesn't matter what you say. They're hateful. Absolutely anybody intelligent knows that. After the Falklands, which Borges said was as sensible as two bald men squabbling over a comb, I was in a library in Buenos Aires. It was the library of the university on the banks of the River Plata, a library which had been trashed by the Argentine junta. Everything was still in disarray. Books strewn about the floor, journals trampled, torn and out of sequence. This is what happened when we had our meetings here, said Añar Cordoba. They'd burst in, then they'd throw red paint at us and leave. She pointed out telltale traces, glossy red drips on books and metal shelving. Then they'd watch us when we left the library buildings. They would know who'd been attending the meetings here, you see, because of indelible splashes of paint on us. They'd take us in. Then we were locked up and, tortured. Many died. So you mustn't talk to any of the police here, whatever you do. You know Eduardo? What they did to him last week? Bribed a small boy to run past him quickly, plant something on him incriminating. So then they'd arrest Eduardo, take him to their place in a Villa Miseria. Looks like a police station, but it's not a police station. It's a fake. Complete fake. Set up especially for police robbery. So what you got, senor? Money? Credit cards? We take them, then we let you go. Maybe. Then, she added darkly, if you're lucky, they don't have bad fun with you. They're not what they seem. They sting you. Far worse than your wasp. Her city was a place where human beings persistently stung each other. Seeing a beautiful woman through the peephole in his door, a friend responded, only to have 3 men enter, one with a machete, its blade pressed on his genitals till he gave them his money. I'd come because I'd once seen a picture of a South American wasp's nest in a Victorian book on unusual habitations of the world's wildlife. Their spiky nest hung from a tree, and it was covered in fierce protrusions, shaped like inch-long thorns, seemingly to protect its contents. Remarkable, haunting contents I'd not heard of before. This wasp made honey. Its weird nest belonged to a species called Polybia scutularis, which was found only on the Argentine pampas in pendulous paper castles. The honey was said to be almost solid, and as black as obsidian. "Did you find any articles yet?" Anya said, after more time in the library, studying the remains of painstakingly comprehensive journals relating to Argentina's flora and fauna before the place was rubbished by Galtieri's junta and indirectly by Thatcher, England's wasp woman. 2 centuries before, Dr. Johnson had expressed wiser thoughts than theirs about the Falklands. He said that there were just and unjust wars, and wars which were just, not worth fighting for, and that the Falklands fell into the latter category, being the sovereign domain of sheep. In 200 years, little had been learnt. People still hated people, and people still hated wasps, to no useful purpose. It occurred that if it was more widely known that wasps made honey, then they'd be seen in a different light, and redeemed. The first account of it, by the naturalist Don Felix de Azara, was ridiculed as a pure concoction of the Baron Munchausen class. Undeterred, Azara sent a wasp's nest to London, to the British Museum, where a Dr. Adam White had found dry honey in its combs. So if a wasp, with its angry mask, makes something as sweet as honey, and if it disrupts the settled rigor of scientists' categories, then how would it taste? Does it cure stings, like dock leaves and nettles? Might it even allay the fear of wasps, namely sphyxophobia? And if one wasp can make honey, why don't all wasps make honey, and thus improve their parlous public standing? Perhaps this one's a mutant species, designed not to die off like bees. Some hardcore hymenoptera producing punk honey. As bees are dying off, thanks, it would seem, to global pollution, with smog interfering with the bee's ability to find nectar, then this Stelia wasp may be replacing its lovable hippie cousin by its now manufacturing the sweetest stuff that life has to offer. When I happened to unearth a metallic wasp near where I was living, one which had a transparent abdomen like a larder made of glass, with antennae like reindeer antlers, and looking more than usually alien, its outlandishness suggested that the wasp was capable of anything. Then a friend, Jorge Godoy, told me of a Guarani Indian in the north, on the borders of Paraguay, in the region of Gran Chaco. He knows the biography of every blade of grass. He'll know your wasp. He speaks good Spanish. Guarani means forest people. Originally, they came from the Amazon basin 7 centuries ago to look for Iwa Mara'ai, a land without evil. They were guided by their prophets, wearing their sacred feathers, and by their Avayampa, which means God-man. Jorge and I traveled to meet Manu on a tributary of the Rio Paraná. He greeted us with a brief word, sucked on his mate gourd, then fell silent. The spikes on the nest, I asked, of the camoati, the indigenous name. Are they protection from jaguars? Manu looked bemused. I opened up the book I'd brought to show him, The Romance of Animal Arts and Crafts, with its picture of a nest being attacked by a snarling jungle cat and a swarm of honey wasps defending it. Manu furrowed his brow. No, para ventilar, caliente acqui. My book had evidently over-dramatized the nest's spikes. They were simply there to ventilate the nest and to keep it cool. He grinned. I'm more danger to this wasp than a cat. He explained this was because the camoati honey made him feel good, and when he felt good, it reduced his hatred for those who'd stolen his land, Brazilians Bolivians, North Americans, and Paraguayans, although it was a consuming hatred. The Pitagua, or foreigners, had edged him from the land he'd lived on for generations, reducing his people to living by roadsides. But when he saw the Wasp's spiny fortress, he could still feel happy, for it held a potent and invaluable secret which sustained him. It was that even this wicked wasp, he has learnt to make honey, and the wasp has to do this despite his bad nature, because all those who want to live have to be good in some way. But you must learn how to discover this goodness. He climbed up to prize clear a tiny portion of the elusive comb. I borrow a little for you. I don't steal. It's their honey. A squad of black creatures moved out of their thorny scrotal sack to crawl all over him during this suspenseful inspection. A surviving article in the library spoke of the Guarani Wasp Honey shaman who made a mouth music while collecting it and were never stung. They know I already have mad honey disease. Manu laughed at our concern. Then he turned back to continue delving while he vibrantly hummed. These wasps feed on Jimson weed, so their honey contains atropine. It can let you know how you're going to die. He handed us some comb. Then he added, out of the blue, stupid people cause a lot of damage. Why? Will this cure them? I asked. I'm still testing it, he smiled. It tasted strange, this paradigm-shifting honey, produced by creatures the world always feels justified in so intractably hating. An intriguing after-effect was an old enemy buzzing my consciousness. He appeared to lean forward, to smile gently, then to wave. Darwin made many references to the work of Donazara, to his studies of woodpeckers and black-necked swans, and to the 500 other birds of Argentina's River Plata that Donazara had captured and then pickled in brandy. Darwin also drew on Azara's studies of small Indian tribes and on their methods of sexual selection, researches that found their way into Darwin's Descent of Man, to fuel proto-fascist doctrines of the survival of the fittest. Oddly, however, Darwin overlooked Azara's discovery of Polybia scutularis, the counterintuitive wasp, and it's still inconceivable to those liking things cut and dried, to whom wasps are evil and so cannot make honey. On returning to Buenos Aires, I bought a brand new blank book, a black moleskin, and then made a whimsical note of the irony that man's intellectual dependence on paper has made him a kind of Mowgli, civilized by wasps. In San Telmo Market, a frail, ailing couple with a wind-up gramophone elegantly tango to Milonga de mis amores. Both parents of a young boy on the Belgrano, torpedoed by the British. They collect money by telling strangers their story. At the Recoleta Cemetery, I see a graffito. Las Malvinas son Argentinas. Some families' mausoleums have electricity, so the bereaved can boil a kettle and spend the day playing their loved ones' records. The war graves show that human wasps' stings last the longest.
You waspy faith, you are too angry.
If I be waspish, best beware my sting.
My remedy then is to pluck it out.
Aye, if the fool could find it where it lies.
Who knows not what a wasp does where his sting in his tail?
In his tongue.
Whose tongue?
Yours, if you talk of tails, and so farewell.
But with my tongue in your tail? Snake good Kate, I am a gentleman.